Identity is complex because it is both biological and social. These social and biological aspects are intricately entangled and in constant flux throughout an individual's life. Identity can be ascribed at birth based on things like cultural norms or a family's socioeconomic status. Ascribed identity can often be decided based on societal and culturally specific values of a community. Take, for example, the color blue being associated with males and boys, whereas the color pink is associated with females and girls. Not all identity is ascribed, though. Aspects of identity are continually negotiated, learned, acquired, and achieved throughout life, all of which are influenced by social structures and community systems and accumulate over the life course. Understanding that achieved or acquired identity is formed and ever-changing socially, it is also changing biologically. At conception, genetic information is passed on from parent to offspring. Genetic material may predispose an individual to diseases or disability, altering their lived experiences from the expected norms. Even before conception, your mother and grandmother's lived experiences impact your health and identity. Identity is not just individual, though. It is also collective. What this means is individuals who share the same or similar ideologies and beliefs based on social experiences and interactions create collective or community identity. Because of the complexity surrounding identity, it is difficult to distinguish where one identity ends and one begins. At both the individual and population level, there are social buffers embedded within society that can either moderate or exacerbate these lived experiences. Each lived experience of identity is embodied, meaning it is retained and imprinted in the biological and social bodies of each individual. Although the body can retain imprints of both positive and negative experiences, those negative and long-term experiences causes unnecessary stress and harm, altering one's identity. Short-term stress is beneficial, though, but our body's resources are finite. So when a stressor becomes long-term or is constantly repeated, this chronic stress can have deleterious effects on health and well-being, leading to the development of chronic diseases such as diabetes and cardiovascular disease. Experiences of stress trigger a stress response that involves the release of hormones like cortisol and norepinephrine. Short-term exposure to those hormones is not bad, but when the body is exposed to cortisol for prolonged periods of time, like during the chronic and episodic stress events, it can have an aggravating effect on the body as these stress hormones damage cells and tissues, causing wear and tear. This wear and tear affects our health because we are not evolutionarily adapted to withstand long-term exposure to stress. So how does stress intersect with identity? Let's consider structural violence. This is an invisible violence that leads to physical and psychological harm. Structural violence occurs when ideologies and behaviors against groups of people are normalized, ultimately leading to harmful policies that are racially discriminating and socially accepted behaviors targeting those that are marginalized. This harm is invisible because this is embedded within the structure of societies, meaning that many individuals are raised in environments where they are not cognizant of the fact that their thoughts and behaviors were culturally constructed to view groups of people in certain ways. Because these harmful ideologies are normalized, they are not problematized, which allows them to be continuously inherited across generations. Over time, this creates othering and a sense of isolation from the society as a whole. Ultimately, along the margins of society, structural violence reduces access to essential resources, partially and even completely, creating a greater risk for disease, poor health, and poor living conditions among those who are marginalized and of low socioeconomic status. This prevents people from reaching their full potential in life. Understanding the effects of structural violence are important because each of the social, biological, and environmental conditions experienced throughout life and in utero accumulate and are reflected biologically, leading to very different lived experiences within and between populations. Interactions between social groups and stratified societies and the structural violence committed by groups forcing dominance over others create and perpetuate marginalization and inequality. Structural violence exacerbates negative experiences, increases exposure to stressors, and decreases the body's ability to properly respond to the harmful conditions of chronic stress experienced by those in these groups. These experiences of chronic stress are embodied, changing both the biological body and the social identity of who a person is. With how fluid identity and how plastic our biologies are, changes in identity are inevitable.